About 2.5 years ago, I moved to this little place in Northern Ontario called Elliott Lake. Little did I realize that living here would expose me to many different things that I'd never really been exposed to before living in Southern Ontario, right near the US border in Niagara. Up here, we have many native reserves, and a lot of our Indigenous people that live up here are affected by things that I never really realized. You always hear about it, but you never really know until you're a part of it. I had a lot of experience in my life with diabetes. Unfortunately, my father was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes when he was just 43 years old, and it has changed the course of his life and his health. And because of that, it's always been a little bit of a passion of mine. When I moved here, I realized that it wasn't just men like my father that this affected, it affected many other people. And so Walk for Health was born. Mamazika is the name that I chose because it means to get moving in Ojibwe, and I thought that that was a good fit for that for this initiative. In Canada, we have public paid healthcare programs. In Ontario, our Ontario government estimates that the average Canadian spends about $6,000 a year in medical costs for our government. When you add type 2 diabetes into that diagnosis, it staggeringly jumps to about $16,000 over the course of 8 years. And so living with diabetes can include a lot of additional care. You have to have testing. There's medications. You need to be monitored by your doctor or healthcare provider much more frequently. Usually every 3 months, you're going in for blood work to test your A1C. You have diabetes medications that are quite costly. You also have insulin injections and all the injection materials used towards that. So it really is quite an expensive disease to have. Living on a native reservation increases your risk of developing diabetes. The average Canadian general population, about 5% will develop diabetes, type 2 diabetes over their lifetime. On a reservation, that jumps to 17.2% of the population. They have a lot of different risks that we would normally think of, and a lot of it has to do with genetics. They are just more predisposed to being susceptible to that. They also have socioeconomic factors that increase their risk. A lot of things, including not trusting in Western medicine, not having a secure foundation as far as education in the schools about health, not having access to nutritious foods and the information that goes along with those foods. And so it's really something that is causing a lot of trouble. And we're looking and seeing that there's increased onset at an earlier and earlier ages and higher chronic conditions that are developing from it. So there's a lot more complications for this population as well. Surprisingly, walking for 30 minutes after dinner is one of the best things that you can do to help control your blood sugar. It can lower your blood glucose levels up to 22% just by taking 30 minutes after a meal and going to walk. Now, obviously, they do recommend having diet and exercise combination throughout the day. And I think about 150 minutes a week is what they would like you to average. But the timing of that walk is actually very important. The highest effect of it is after dinner. So small changes can have big impacts on your life. Just switching that lunchtime walk to an after dinner walk could dramatically reduce your blood glucose levels. I'm going to tell you about a success story that we had with our pilot project of this program. We have someone named Ben Featherstone, and he was giving us his affidavit as to what he wanted to share about the progress that he made with this program. He was about 15 years old when he started experiencing all of the general symptoms of type 2 diabetes. So he had frequent urination, he was thirsty, he just generally felt a little bit unwell, tired, sluggish. He complained to his mom about it, and they didn't really pursue anything for about a year after that. So he did get a diagnosis of type 2 diabetes when he was about 17 years old. And, you know, Unfortunately, he didn't have the tools at his access that he could. And by the time he was 32, he lost his first toe. And that was a wake-up call for him. He really didn't know what to do with that. He felt he was far too young for these kind of complications, and he really didn't know where his life was going from there. But one night he was surfing the internet, came across our promotion online because we were promoting it locally, and he saw that we were doing a walk for health after dinner. So he took a chance on us, and he came and he spent the evening speaking to one of our volunteers, learning more about how walking can change his diagnosis and change the course of his life. And fast forward a few years later, and he has his A1C is in much more controlled zone, and he is experiencing much less fatigue, more health and less sick time away. And we're working towards getting him to be off of insulin dependence. So it's a real success story. And that's just from changing a few small things, starting with walking 30 minutes after dinner. So I know that it seems like a little thing, but it really can make a huge difference. And you really can walk for your health. And so, Mama Zika, everybody needs to go walk for 30 minutes. Thank you.